Alright, so for this week I'm going to be discussing option A, and that is the discussion of the self and what is the self. And I like to tie this into last week's discussion on Descartes' dualism, and saying that the brain and the body are two separate things that work congruently with each other, but aren't necessarily like combined into one thing. I think that there is a soul, a brain, a consciousness that exists outside of this physical body. That you have a physical body and there are biological processes that happen within, but like if you were to take your brain and your soul and your memories and put it into a separate body, that new body would then become the self. I think that the self is a culmination of thoughts and feelings and emotions, and the body is just a vessel. So okay, let's see. I like to, I found very interesting reading Daniel Dennett's explanation on the brain and his experiment with a brain in a vat, and he goes through this process of, because they're trying to get this nuclear bomb that has all this radioactive material that's bad for the brain out of the ground, and he has to put his brain somewhere else while he goes to extract this technology. And he at first goes through three things. Whenever he sees his brain after they do the transplant, he sees it and he says, "Where am I? Am I here in Houston? Am I inside the lab? Yes, I'm inside the lab. I'm inside this position in the lab." But whenever he goes to say, "I'm inside the vat," as he's sitting there looking at his brain, he can't do it. And so he then goes to question, okay, is the self the body? So if the self is the body, then he talks about the brain transplant, and in transplanting a brain, it was really like in taking one person, Tom's brain, and putting it inside the body of Dick, and Dick's brain and putting it inside the body of Tom, that it's more like a body transplant, because those two brains are going to still associate themselves with that person versus the body that they're in. Then he goes to question, is the self the brain? So what if and he refers to the brain as Yorick. He says, "Where Yorick, there goes Dennett. Where goes Yorick, there goes Dennett." So like in talking about position, in talking about position of the body versus the brain, he questions okay, so then he then goes to talk about robbing a bank, and if his body goes to rob the bank, is he going to be tried in the state that his body did it, or is he going to be tried in the state that his brain is in? And at the end of all this work, Dennett's point of view is basically to say that the self is a perception. The self is, first it could be the body, it could be the brain, but the self is more rooted in the position that you are in the world. versus memories or versus conscious thought. It's more externally around you is how you can define the self.
Okay.
I think this comes closer to the real version of what the self is. I don't think that the self can just be the body, but also the self can't just be the brain. It has to be a culmination of your memories, your consciousness, and the external environment around you.